All right, let's jump right in. Have you ever stopped to think about how you actually know anything? I mean, really know it. How do you know the sky's blue or that a car is approaching? Well, it all kicks off with our senses. So today, we're going to dive deep into the very bedrock of our reality, perception. It seems pretty simple, doesn't it? You see it, so you know it's there. But what if it's not quite that straightforward? What if your most fundamental connection to the world around you isn't nearly as reliable as you think? So here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll start by looking at why perception is the bedrock of our beliefs. Then we'll see how a simple sensation turns into a belief we feel good about. After that, we'll get into a really fascinating philosophical debate. And finally, we'll talk about what happens when our senses, well, when they get it wrong. Okay, so let's start at square one. All of our knowledge about the world has to start somewhere, right? And for almost everything, that starting point is what we can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. At its most basic level, that's all perception really is. It's just the process of gathering data. You can think of it like a constant stream of information that our senses are piping into our brains about the world that's, outside of our own heads. Now, here's a really key idea from epistemology, which is just the fancy philosophy term for the study of knowledge. In that world, perception isn't just one source of belief. It's considered a basic source. That means it's foundational. It's where the justification for what we know is literally born. And this is where it gets really interesting. Perception is what we call generative. It actually creates new justification from scratch. You see a green field for the first time? Boom! A new reason to believe is created right there in that moment. But other sources, like memory or what people tell you, those are preservative or transmissive. Your memory just holds on to beliefs you already made. And testimony? Well, you have to first perceive it. You have to hear the words or read the text. They don't generate anything new. They just pass it along. So how does this whole process actually work? Let's trace the journey from a raw sensation, like light hitting your eye, all the way to a belief you'd be willing to bet on. It's a really cool four-step dance. It starts with the raw input. You see a green field. The second that happens, you have something called situational justification. Think of it like a reason to believe is now on the table. It's available to you. Step 3 is you actually forming the belief. You think to yourself, yep, there's a green field. And finally, once that belief is based on what you saw, the belief itself becomes justified. Philosophers call that doxastic justification. And this is the magic of it right here. It's not some long, drawn-out logical process. You don't think, my eyes are detecting light wavelengths consistent with green, therefore a field probably exists. No, it's immediate. The very act of seeing it is the reason. It's direct, it's instant, it's non-inferential. But why? Why does seeing something give us a reason to believe it? This is where things get messy, and philosophers basically enter a courtroom to argue about where the real power of perception actually comes from. So think about this for a second. Is your belief justified because of the quality of the experience happening inside your mind? Or is it justified because your senses are a pretty reliable bridge to the world outside your mind? This chart really lays out the two big teams. On one side, you have the internalists. They say justification comes from stuff inside your head. The raw sensory experience is the evidence, period. On the other side are the externalists. They argue it's all about having a reliable process that connects you to reality. And the ultimate test case, a hallucination. An internalist has to say that a perfectly vivid hallucination gives you just as much justification as seeing the real thing, because the internal feeling is identical. But the externalist, they'd say no way. A hallucination is an unreliable process, so it gives you zero justification, absolutely none. And all of this leads us to the final act, the big twist in the story. The fact that our most basic, most trusted source of knowledge can, and sometimes absolutely does, fail us. And what that means is pretty huge. While perception gives us powerful, immediate reasons to believe things, it doesn't give us certainty. It is absolutely not foolproof. This brings us to a super important word, defeasible. Our beliefs from perception are defeasible. That's just a way of saying we can accept them as true for now, but they can always be defeated or overturned if some new, better evidence comes along. So what kind of new evidence can act as a belief defeater? Well, all sorts of things. Classic optical illusions, like a stick looking bent in a glass of water, realizing you're hallucinating. Getting contradictory info, like seeing that green field but feeling concrete under your feet. Or even just getting new information, like someone telling you that you're looking at an ultra-realistic painting, not a real field. Any one of these things can come in and completely wipe out your original justification. Which brings us to the big, lingering question we have to leave you with. If the very foundation of how we know the world is both incredibly powerful, but also kind of fragile, always capable of being proven wrong, what does that really mean for our search for certainty? How much can any of us ever really know for sure?